So I'll start with introducing Dr. Thomas Nyilenda, who is a strategic partnership and capacity development manager, head of Africa Office of the European and Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnership, EDCTP. He's a trained public health physician and research scientist with more than 28 years of experience in clinical medicine, public health, as well as clinical research across sub-Saharan Africa. He has supported so many programs in Africa, including the Africa CDC Task Force on COVID-19. He is also in the Global COVID-19 Coalition and the Global WHO Advisory Group on Clinical Trials Coordination. And he also happens to be the Director of CRIMS, Malawi. He has also supervised so many grants and also mentored a lot of people in this, making him just a perfect candidate for him to speak to us tonight. But he will not be alone. We will also have real-time experiences from the applicants that also applied for grants previously and have won. So I'll also introduce Nathan Singano, who is going to be one of our speakers as well. Nathan is an early career researcher specializing in neglected tropical diseases. He's received notable research grants and awards and outreach grants from the European Society of Clinical Biology as well as Infectious Disease Scheme 2024. He's an early career. He also won the early career grant in 2023 from the Royal Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene and a travel grant to present his finding at the third Cohes Research Dissemination Conference in 2024, where he was also recognized as the best presenter, oral presenter for the master's program. So he's really passionate about improving health outcomes, and his research mainly focuses on informing policy as well as addressing the challenges that people with neglected tropical diseases face. But we also have a great privilege of being joined by Martin Chigwede. Martin is a registered nurse and midwife with expertise in maternal neonatal as well as child health care, particularly in the realm of surgical care. Through his work, he has contributed significantly to improving healthcare delivery and access in Malawi, leading to a critical research project on neonatal surgical care, including the grant that he won in 2023, where he looked into the KP of gastroschisis and peripheral management, as well as co-authoring a couple of studies that are addressing surgical outcomes. He's also he's also recent grant experience and a master student in global health surgery at Stellenbosch University, where he's also doing his master's through research. It's a great privilege to welcome all of you to this session, where we'll be learning about grant writing as well as how you can best frame your grant and also to develop the most probable or fundable grant that you have. So I will welcome to the stage Dr. Thomas Nyilenda, who is going to start the stage, and then he will be joined by the two colleagues that I've mentioned as well. And I'm your host, Dr. Adriano Luanga, but also a 2024 recipient of the Royal Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene grant, as well as a co-leader in a couple of grants that we have accumulated at Clinical Research, Education and Management Services. I hope that this session you will enjoy. Welcome, Dr. Thomas Nyilenda. I'll hand over the floor to you. Others will be finding us along the way so that we keep the time as we promised. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Adriano. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, sure. You can just request that.
Yeah.
Right.
So thanks very much for the warm welcome, Adriano. I will start with a few questions. Has any one of you in the audience felt grant writing is not for you, but for some special people? Have any of you tried writing grants but couldn't manage to get it through or get it done? Has any one of you tried writing a grant but has had numerous discouraging responses from potential funders? And has any one of you really tried to get the basics but has not succeeded? If the answers to all these questions is yes for you, or any of them is yes, then indeed this session is for you. What this talk will cover is the basic understanding and ingredients of good grant writing skills as I understand them, and also how to get and improve on these skills. And as Adriano said, we will include 2 testimonials from young Malawian scientists who have gone through the processes to share their experiences. What this talk will not cover is a demonstration, for example, of completing research grant forms, because this is basic information which anybody can find on the websites of several funders. It will not also cover listing individual funders and their requirements, because this is also general information that you can find everywhere when you look for it. So Adriano talked about myself. I am indeed one of the founders of CRIMS in Malawi in 2011. I am also extraordinary senior lecturer in the Department of Global Health at the University of Stellenbosch here in South Africa, where I am based. And I am also the head of the EDCTP Africa office, where I've served for 21 years. And while at EDCTP, I've had experience of being part of a very experienced team and awarding close to 700 grants, some of them really big grants up to 10 million euros each, and some of them very small and of different types, as you can see there. And in the last 20 years, I've been part of a team that has awarded over 1 billion euros of research grants in Africa. So I stand before you with some experiences that I would like to share about grant writing. It may not be all that you need to know, but I've tried to summarize in short sentences and short slides these basics so that you use them as a platform for building your research career. I would like to start by taking you back to 2,500 years almost. And the man you see there is a philosopher, Aristotle, who developed the concept called rhetoric, which is the art of speaking to make people listen and take action, which other people call persuasive communication. Ladies and gentlemen, this, although is very far back in history, rhetoric has never changed. And the way Aristotle described it, which is below his picture there, is that rhetoric consists of three components. One, which he called ethos, which is the ethical appeal and reputations of the speaker. And the other he called logos, which is the logical appeal of the content of the speech. And the last one he called pathos, which is emotional appeal in the speech that moves people or listeners. If you think in terms of daily life, you are able to get convinced and listen to a preacher in church because you know their reputations, you believe in what they say, and when they say what they want to say logically and put it in a context that appeals to you, you respond. You either stand up and give a standing ovation, or you nod, or you say, I receive, whatever the reaction. The same applies to people in politics who are, many of them, using rhetoric, sometimes without even understanding that they are using it. They create an ethical appeal that they are the right people to speak to us. And then they construct their story in a way that they want to convince us. And before we know it, we are on our feet, we are applauding, we are jumping up and about and saying they are the greatest people we have ever heard or seen or come across before. This art is with us and is the art that I want to sell to you in terms of writing your grants constructively so that you can get them awarded. How does this apply, for example, to applications for grants? If you take the two first columns that I've already given you and apply to some funding principles that most funders or some funders use, now I'm going to use the example of my own organization, which I introduced to you. You'll see that they'll tell you that if you apply for grants, they will assess your application based on three principles. The first, they call it project implementation. And the second, they call it excellence of your proposal. And the third, they call it impact. If you compare with what Aristotle produced some thousands of years ago, this is a mirror image, only constructed in different words. Because what the funder is saying in project implementation is the ethos. I want to see the experience of the researcher or the research team or the consortium. Who are behind it? Who are the people? What is their experience? And that needs to come out somewhere in your application. In terms of excellence, they want to see the logos. They want to see the logic explanation and application of the scientific solution that you're proposing to develop with their funding. When they talk about impact, they're mostly talking about pathos. What is the movement your solution is going to make in changing the people's lives for the better from the baseline we are today? If you put all those three in very logical manner and it satisfies their criteria in terms of how they are rated, you are bound to do well. So for the organization that I work for example, for project implementation, the maximum score is 5. For excellence, the maximum score is also 5, and also for impact, the maximum score is 5. So a very good proposal will get 15 out of 15. And a very poor proposal will probably get 3 out of 15. So this is what I would like to sell to you today, to think about. So I am going to go through a few slides now to see how you can maximize your scientific ethos, logos, and pathos in grant writing. I'm briefly going to talk about self-realization as an important step, followed by the art of knowing your targeted funders, followed by the importance of having effective mentors in your scientific life, followed by the importance of being part of an experienced research team or consortium. And lastly, just to talk about how practice makes perfect. So knowing yourself is very important in grant writing. If you just start scribbling because you've seen a call for applications and start writing without assessing who you are, where you are, what you are capable of, you're more likely starting on a very failed slippery ground. You have to ask yourself, how well do I know this research area? Do I have in-depth knowledge of the subject? Do I have the academic experience? Do I have the previous research grants to show for? The ethos that we talked about. Do I have the publications relevant in the subject to also show that I'm the rightful person to do this? Do I have affiliations or memberships to research networks or teams that have done this kind of work before that I can use to justify my position? And the other thing is that depending on your assessment, you have to decide whether you are going ahead with the application or you need more training and go right away to do those kind of trainings. The second step, as I said, is knowing your funder. And here, again, I would strongly promote that you don't just pick a pen and start writing proposals without understanding who the funder is. The question, how well you know the funder, is really important because you need to know their core principles. Who are their financiers and what are they looking for? Most of this information you can find on their websites, but also sometimes they publish a lot of stuff with their calls for applications that explain their stand. And if there are ways to engage them, they will put their channels of engagement. And this is another area that I find most applicants very weak because they stand aloof and they think that contacting the funder and opening channels of communication to ask questions and clarifications, even in the absence of grants, is a wasteful exercise. No, I would really promote or recommend that you do the opposite. Bearing in mind that funders would like to work with grantees who will spearhead their delivery of their intended impacts upon which their financing was based. Different funders view their impacts differently. If you take this example that was published a few years ago by Prevnet, you will see that if you talk of research benefits. It's the research on its own. And there'll be funders that will only be interested in generating new knowledge, getting deep understanding into new philosophies, and getting that into training, etc., etc. And you need to know then how you are going to approach getting grants from such funders. The same applies to other funders who are interested in the pipeline, different areas of the pipeline of research. Some will be interested in dissemination alone, some uptake of research results, implementation, etc., etc. So this you need to take into consideration. Now, times have changed. Maybe there were days when people could do things alone, but finding a mentor is really, really important. Sometimes even the great men in history, when you read about them, you find out that they were great indeed, but their greatness was built on others. I think it was Isaac Newton, if I may paraphrase, who said it. I was able to see very far because I stood on the shoulders of giants. All we know ourselves is that Isaac Newton is the father of physics in terms of laws of motion, don't we? But he confessed that he did that by standing on the shoulders of other people who we don't recognize. So working with others is the third key component of getting your work done right. And here, I just put this picture in your face because finding a mentor may be very new, and some of you may be asking, so how do I do that? How do I go about it? Finding a mentor, engagement, and getting into a mentor-mentee situation is a process. And you cannot do this process in a hurry because it has to be done very well. And I suppose this is a subject on its own for another day that CRIMS may arrange as an area of interest that people would want to hear about. But just to share a little bit about the process, once you are interested in a research area, you are developing your expertise in it, and you're really convinced you are doing well, and now you're targeting your funders, you have to find people within that research discipline that are going to further your career, on whose shoulders you're going to stand. So once you find them, it is a form of being constructive, setting the expectations in the first stages, and expressing yourself, where you want to go and how you want assistance, and agreeing on those expectations, and making the mentor also comfortable that they are able to assist you to get there. And then when you start working towards accomplishing your goal, everything has been set and you're moving together as a program. Of course, you have to agree when the mentorship is going to end or whether it's going to change focus, because this is very important. Good mentorship and working with a good mentor is really essential for you to improve in the research area. And this is a great way of knowing how to do things well in science, including writing good grant applications. The fourth area that I mentioned is, again, related to not working alone, is really to find a way to join reputable research teams and consortiums to cultivate the culture of excellence and integrity. Funders work with institutions and people who strive for excellence and integrity. So finding these networks where they exist, opening channels of discussion is one way of investing in yourself and growing in your career. You also need to build your own brand, develop your shareable CV and put it on a website. And nowadays, most people use LinkedIn as a way of, for example, showing their brand. And that makes you visible, especially for people looking for partnerships, that you can easily join these formidable networks, strong networks that can help you grow within your needs as a scientific early career researcher. Lastly, as I mentioned, it's the issue of doing or learning by doing. Practice makes perfect. You cannot master the art of grant writing if you don't take a chance and try it. The more you fail, the more you succeed, just like anything else. When we were babies, we fell down so many times before we stood, and our parents were happy now we can stand. And then when we tried to walk, we fell so many times before we could walk unassisted. That's how life is. The same applies to grant writing. Give it a go. Try. Because what you're going to get as a response is something that is going to help you grow. Nothing is personal. A no means your idea has not been properly constructed. Its logos, ethos, pathos is not there, or is weak, or it's just muddled up. Grow from that. Now, this is where sometimes other people start when they're talking about grant writing is, okay, do a literature review, do that, do this. Now, I decided to start way back so that you have this constructive thought in your mind based on very ancient knowledge on how we construct logic, back it, and then get support from those that are listening or reading. So I think this is the right time to talk about proposal writing. Just like any other piece of writing that you want somebody to read. Now that I've talked a lot about these logos, ethos, and pathos, maybe we did not understand it in the past, that this is the way life is constructed. When we're talking to people, we don't know that these are the three components that can make our argument strong. As you're writing your proposal now, strive as much as possible to be logical. Communicate the main message clearly in concise form. Make the reader not get lost in detail. Remember that the funders will use what they call external reviewers to look at your proposal, just like journals look for reviewers. And the reviewers are humans just like you and me. When they're reading muddled up texts, the grammar is wrong, punctuation is wrong, they start to throw in human nature. And that is already discouragement that what they are reading is not good enough. And if you work backwards from where I started, it's making already your ethos very weak before they find whether it's logical or not. So you have to do this really well. And the other way of making your argument really logical, is using data. So you have to base your argument on facts. And how do we do this? This is where now literature review comes in. You have to go into the databases, look at the subject you are interested in, and look at what work has been done before. What does the data say? So you can start your logical argument why you think you can take the world in another direction, in a better way. The use of language is important. Most of the applications nowadays are attracted in English, but there are also other languages that may be used, but use the language the way the native speakers speak it. And how do you do that? Now we have several tools, spell checks on the computer, use your dictionary that is electronically loaded there, etc., etc. Again, you're trying to make a case that you are the right person to take this project forward, or you're the right team, or you're the right consortium to take this work forward to reach the funder's impact. Be careful with the use of graphics, because some graphics are important to help the reader understand what you want to say, but sometimes overuse of graphics can be destructive, a distraction. And this needs to be used with care. Formatting. I cannot overemphasize on formatting, as I've already said. Take special care to make sure your proposal looks beautiful. Most funders now use e-line or online submission forms, but do not be tempted to straight away go into these and start typing, because some of them don't have spell checks. Some of them can't really pick up the things you would pick up if you use a word processor. Better use a word template so that you check the text yourself. When it's correct and convincing to you, you cut and paste it in the online form. So really invest time in presenting yourself, your proposal, and the logic. And this requires thorough preparation to be implemented well. If you think about this, this is why also doing it as a team is much easier. So this builds on itself. I would like to stop now because I think I've given enough detail in terms of the basics. I hope I have managed to inspire you to strive to make your writing persuasive to your targeted audience. And in this case, is the funders that you want to issue money to your grants. Remember what Aristotle taught us. Your ethical appeal and reputations matter. Your logical argument of why you should be funded matters. Your appeal about how the solution you're proposing will change lives for the better matters. Combine them well. If you do that, I'm sure you will maximize your chances of writing a good grant application every time you try. It's not that you're going to get everything funded. Even the best scientists get turned down. This is where doing it over and over again achieves mastery. So thank you very much for listening to me. I think Adriano talked about bringing on board now people who have gone through this kind of process in a personal way. I've just gone through the theoretical parts of it that we can hear about their personal experiences. But I'll be happy to take questions later on if people have on my presentation. Thanks, Adriano and team, and welcome to all those that are also new to CRIMS and those that have joined the association of the club. This is the way I think you can succeed in this business, by working with others, learning from each other, but also working with the best. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Nyirenda. I'll be bringing to the stage Nathan Singano. I already introduced him, and then we'll be followed by Martin Chigwede, who I also introduced, and then we can take in some questions. So, Nathan, I give this floor to you to share your insight.
Okay. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, sure, we can hear you.
Right, thank you so much. Thank you, Adriano and Tom, for giving me this platform where I can share one or two experiences. And also, Dr. Tom, that was a good presentation. I've learned a few things from that. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, yes. So I've intentionally avoided going towards areas where I felt like a lot of research has been done. So, for instance, maybe areas like HIV and malaria, it's a bit difficult to find a research gap, especially if you're just starting out in research, because these areas have been traveled a lot, so to speak. And so, but there are other areas where, under-researched areas, where a lot of research hasn't been done. So, for example, neglected tropical diseases. So, as the name suggests, these are neglected diseases, maybe because of funding, because of neglect, that people don't really know much about them and whatnot. So if there is a grant call and you submit a proposal towards one of these areas, you're going to be unique. So you have a better chance because, one, there's less resistance in that area. And like, because there are obvious research topics, maybe towards HIV, malaria, and tuberculosis and whatnot. So you might want to consider picking a path where you're not going to meet a lot of resistance, and that has worked for me. And you can still go for these big diseases, but then maybe just find a niche or an area which maybe a lot of people haven't really thought about. And in that way, you're going to stand out towards the funders. And secondly, as well, you have to know good grantsmanship. So grantsmanship is basically like dancing to the funders' tune. So if funders say, okay, we're interested in maternal health, then obviously you have to submit a proposal which is related to maternal health. So for instance, we have maybe Bill and Melinda Gates who have put up money for malaria. So if they put up a funding call, a request for proposals and anything like that, they're going to expect funding towards malaria. So they don't expect to see anything to do maybe with HIV. But then grantsmanship goes beyond that, because as much as you have something that aligns to the core, you also have to show in your proposal how your research is now aligned to the funders' core. So the funders have mission statements, goals, visions, and you can find these on their website and whatnot. So sometimes you really have to borrow words from maybe from their mission statement to say, okay, I'm interested in this topic because it aligns with your mission of ABCD. So when they're going through that, okay, this is making sense. We're interested in this. We're going to benefit as well, because remember, at the end of the day, this is not your money. It's their money. So you have to sort of do what they want you to do with the money, as much as they're going to give you the money. And so you really have to know what they're really interested in. So for instance, the Royal Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene, they are funded mostly by INHR in the UK. So INHR in the UK is mostly patient-centered research. So they're not really interested in global health per se, but they're maybe interested in patient care and what you're going to do to improve the outcomes of the patients and whatnot. So whatever research you're going to do, you have to carefully read the requirements, what are their objectives, so that you align whatever your research topic is, no matter how passionate you are about maybe HIV or whatever research interest that you're interested in. You really have to show how that your research is going to align to the funder's goal. And then again, don't work alone. Always collaborate with other people. So there are two kinds of people that you should work with. The first kind is people that are going to add value to your life, right? Because if you are surrounded with people that think like you, and you can engage with those people, you're going to benefit something at the end of the day. So you need to work with these people. And secondly, you need to work with people that are going to critique your ideas. As much as it's good to have someone who agree with you, surround yourself with also people that once I tell this one this, that is going to crush it. That is also good for your experience. So to put it all in context, I was granted a grant by RSTMH towards leprosy. So how I got this grant was that I was actually talking to my friend and I said in there, and she said, "Do you know that leprosy is back in Malawi? We have found a few cases here," and that was in Chiradzo. Then I was really interested to say, okay, leprosy this day is still available. Then she said, "Yeah, we are finding cases." Then I researched it further. Then I found actually that, yeah, some cases have been going up towards the years. And then also I found out that the last publication that we had in Malawi about leprosy was in 2012. So meaning, since 2012 up to 2023, that was actually 2022 when I was researching into it, we didn't have any publication towards leprosy. It was really one of those neglected diseases. So once I had something, I had written up something, I didn't know who I was going to find to apply to at that time. So that's another thing. Like, you always have to be prepared. You can have research topics that you think these are good research topics, so that when the funding opportunity comes, you are ready to submit. So by that time I was doing my master's. So I went with it to one of my professors who, like, he was one of those professors who, whenever he was lecturing to us, he would just make you feel like you are stupid, you are dumb. He was really smart and he used to crush us a lot in class. So I went to him because I knew that once I present this topic, he's going to crush it. So, and he really did crush it. He made me feel like, okay, what is leprosy in Malawi? We have big problems there like HIV, TB, malaria. What's leprosy? What's the significance of this study, And I really felt like, okay, maybe this is not even a good topic. But whatever he said, that really helped me to make my idea sound concrete. Like, okay, leprosy is neglected. And if we don't do anything about it, this is what's going to happen. And now I was actually tying it to the funders, because that's what the funders wanted. They were interested in patient care, improving health outcomes. So I was able to tie that, show the burden of leprosy, what's happening on the ground, the neglect that has been happening. And I'm sure that when they read that, they were really surprised to say, okay, so leprosy is still a problem in Malawi. And they invited me later, once I was granted the grant, they invited me later to share why I actually chose leprosy. So I believe my idea was unique and it stood out among other, like the most common proposals which they received, maybe towards HIV and whatnot. And lastly, don't give up. Grant writing is very competitive. You might not be successful the first time, but leverage what you have learned. Sometimes you are given comments, feedback. You can use that. Sometimes you're not given any, but don't give up. Keep trying. One day you're going to be successful. And with those few words, I end there.
All right, thank you so much, Nathan. Let me invite another person experience for Martin, and then we'll take up a round of questions, and then we can conclude this talk. It's just really an introduction to grant lighting, so that you just know the basic tips from it. Martin, are you here?
I am here. Can I share my
cool.
screen?
Yeah, sure. Just request the share, then I'll grant that.
All right. Okay, thank you. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah, sure.
All right, thanks. All right, so as Adriano introduced me, my name is Martin Chigwede. I am a registered nurse midwife working at KCH, and still an early career researcher with an experience in grant writing and running a grant-funded project. My task tonight, after these notable speakers shared their insights, particularly Dr. Tom Nyelenda, who shared a really, really good presentation. I think lessons to even myself and everyone here. I think we've learned a lot. My task would be to share insights, particularly on my grant writing experience, what it was like and what it involved, and what I learned throughout that journey. And so I think I'll start with talking about the motivation that went in it. I think we all should find ourselves at a point where we have self-motivation to work on something. So my journey involved me finding a problem where I worked, and this problem was an issue that was affecting the delivery of healthy care to our patients. And so I think it was something that we overlooked, but then over time we realized that, okay, this needs to be explored and to find what really is happening. And so personally, I took it up to myself and I developed a solution. And this was me just trying to work on the concept notes, research proposal. At that time, I really didn't have anywhere to submit it. This was just me being, just working on something. And so it took time. I was able to finish it. And then I tried looking on how best to make it better. And so realizing that, okay, I wrote this my loan, and to me it sounds okay. Now, what do I do? Now I had to share with my immediate supervisor, the head of our department, and I shared with him. And trust me, as similar to what Nathan went through, he crushed the point a lot, and as I was leaving that meeting, I was demotivated because to me, I really didn't persuade him on why I think this can work. And so that meant going back to the drawing board. And so I tried to modify it alone. And then I went to him, and then I think we were on board together. And so that's where my self-motivation came in. And I didn't just stick to my self-motivation because that alone will not be enough in this process. You need to work with others. I think I can't stress much on this because from Dr. Tom, Nathan, and myself, we're talking of working with others because no man is an island. I think that's the common saying. We all need to work with people. And by working with people also at the same time, there's a disclaimer because we doesn't mean leaving the work for them that they should do it. If you have the idea, you should lead. The only thing that they're doing is just to give you water as you run. And so now moving on, I also want to talk about my mentors, the mentor that I had. Who is this mentor? I think throughout this, in our careers, we need mentors. And I think that's something that is important. We know how much that is important. But then in this grant writing area, if you're working on, let's say, my area was on gastroschisis, which is a pediatric surgery condition. And so the best person to be my mentor in this case was the head of department of our department, pediatric surgery, who is a pediatric surgeon. And so by doing that, you're putting on board someone that has more experience in the area, more experience and more expertise in this area, both technical and also someone that has some theoretical knowledge in the area as well. And so to me, I would say that is what makes up the perfect mentor if you are to come up with a mentor in this process. Now we had developed this concept. Now we had to make it make sense. To us, it makes sense, but then we had to make it make sense to the funders. Now we had to find the funders first of all. We had to identify, okay, who can possibly fund this? Because now we have this idea, we have this concept, and the practicalness of this concept involves finances. But where do we find the money to do this? Who is going to give us the money? And if we find them, are they just going to give us? Because they will not just give you the money for the sake of you saying, I need money. You need to make it more rational and reasoning to them. And most importantly, it should align to what they want. And as they all shared, the previous speakers, that's where you come in and find what matters to them. What do they fund? What is their work? And you can find this simply on their websites. You go on their website, you find it, and you learn, okay, these guys really are interested in snake bites. These guys are interested in funding HIV. They're interested in funding implementation science. And so by doing that, you're aligning to that. And that's just one of the ways how you can be able to do it. And so by doing that, we are able to work on that and say, you know what, okay, so RSTMH can be able to do it, can be able to fund us. And particularly because they have another funder who is funding them, which is NIHR as well, who is interested in the area that we're doing. And more to that, I think making it, if it's a problem to you, make it sound enough to be a problem to others. That's the other thing that I can say. And so that's what I can say about my grant writing journey. The challenges that came through, I think that's something else that we can talk about, the actual the practicalness of running a grant-funded project, but just the writing process, this is what I can say. And to wrap it up and to sum it up, if you don't apply now, you really don't stand a chance, because if not now, then when? You know. So I urge you that you start now. There are a lot of funders out there. I was privileged to be awarded in 2023 by RSTMH, the Royal Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene, similar to Nathan and as well Adriano. And as much as that happened, we went through it and we've done that. But it's not like that is the only funder. There are a bunch of funders out there that you can find. It's a pool of funders, but I think it takes an initiative for you to just search, sit down, search, find what is there. But before that, you need to have an idea of what you want to do. I don't think starting with finding the funder and then not having an idea is the right thing. I think you need to have an idea of what you want to do and how you have to go about it. So yeah, I think that's what I can share. Thank you, Adriano, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Nathan, and thank you, Dr. Nyilenda. At this point in time, I think we still have 7 more minutes because we started at 7:05. So we can take in some few questions. It's either you can type in the chat or you can raise a hand, then I can point it out to you. So if there are more questions, also be assured that some of you may have joined late, so the video will be shared on our YouTube channel as well as on our social media handles, so you can just go there and watch it at some point in time later. This is really just the introduction, the basics, but there is more, and there will be, for all the members of the associate, there will be one-to-one mentorship. If you have an idea that you would like to develop, we'll make an arrangement for that so that you benefit from these experiences and put up a very competitive application. So if there are questions, type them in the chat or just raise a hand. We can give you a chance to ask. There is a question to Martin. For the RSTM grant that you got awarded, what was your research topic or question? So, Martin.
All right, thank you, Glory. I was funded to run a CAP study. The title that's of my topic, or the question that I was trying to address, is the problem. First of all, was that we noted that we had a lot of gastroschisis babies coming. So these are babies that are born with intestines outside. So we noted that they're coming at a referral facility, KCH, and how they're coming is just not right. Something is not right. they're supposed to do ABC, but they're not doing ABC, they're doing XYZ. And so what we had to do was to find an exploration. So we simply did knowledge, attitude, and perception of healthy care workers on gastroschisis peripheral management interventions. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Martin. I don't know if there are more questions. You can type in the chat or just raise up the hand. We can give you a chance to speak. Yeah. All right. There is a question, or there's a hand from right. You can unmute and then speak, and then we can, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Adriano. So my question is on the budgeting. I think it might help a lot of people, including me myself. So my question is, how can we strike a balance between addressing the project objectives and then also ensuring that our own needs are met? Because, you know, at the end of the day, as much as we're doing research, we also need some money from it. So like maybe salaries or a DSA or anything like that. And so how can we ensure that those are also adequately covered in the proposal, but then also we are also meeting with the budget that have been given by the funders, sort of like striking a balance in between? Are there like best practices or strategies that we can use to justify effectively this cost to funders? Thank you.
Yeah, I will share my insight, but I think Dr. Nyendo will also share his insight. So thank you, Nathan, for that question. My insight working in this funding application is that at the point of the application, what you do is what the funders want. Because if you don't satisfy the funders' needs, and many times I have been asked to revise the budget in some 2 to 3 areas to align with the terms or things that the funder want at the time of the application. And there is no anything that you can do at that particular point in time. But when the funding is obtained, there are some laws which you can pray as an awardee or as a grantee, which can substitute some of the laws that you have given out to everyone. And then in one way or the other, you find a balance on how you can also get some legal resources from that. I think that's usually what we have done or what happens in most of the times, but maybe Dr. Nyenda may also be in the best position to give an addition to that. So Doc, just share your experience. Nathan is asking if there are best practices with regard to balancing your personal needs as well as the balancing of the funders.
Well, thanks very much, Adriano. I think you have answered the question well. There are guidelines for each and every fund, and I think one just needs to follow that. I think what we can do at the next webinar, which can be organized later, is really to bring the experiences of different funders in terms of budgeting, because there are subtle differences. Some funders want you to fill timesheets so that you can claim what you're paying yourself. Others don't. And that's where the trick is, because they start judging you against things that are not in the guidelines. So I think we need a separate seminar on that, so we can bring several funders' experiences so people can share.
Right. Yeah. So thank you for the insights. I think we can organize that so that we have a special webinar for that. The other question from Melly was, how can one join the association, or how can one join the association or on one-to-one mentorship? So CRIMS recently just introduced what we call the CRIMS Associate Membership Program, where most of the people started last year, but now we have expanded to a big audience. And the main aim is to learn a one-to-one mentorship with all our members, as well as link our members to potential mentors who can help them to grow in their day-to-day life. So the whole information with regard to the membership is available at our website, which is www.creamsmw.com, and also how you can apply for the membership. And then from that, we'll have the next webinar, which is going to be the orientation of all our registered members, where we are going to talk more about this on the 5th of April. So you can just visit on our website and then check that, and then the rest of the clarification will be made at the time of orientation of our associate members on the 5th of April. The orientation is going to be happening almost every month, but the first one is happening in 2 days' time from this time period. There's one hand. Perhaps I can take in one more question, then we'll close. I don't know if you can speak, yeah?
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the wonderful session. This was so insightful and informative. But I have a question for all of the past grant awardees. People do always encourage us to, start applications very early before the deadline. But I just wanted to find out exactly how early did you start and what were you doing on a day-to-day? I think it was someone had mentioned, having to go back to the drawing board and starting again. And also when you bring in a mentor, when you're now specifically writing towards the goal of a grant, how do you balance out the time? Do you work more independently, or do you work on a fixed schedule as you approach the deadline, just so that we're able to plan these things accordingly? Thank you.
Thank you, Ludo. I can share some insight, but Martin and Nathan can also come in. So what I usually talk about is that you have to be intentional, and being intentional means also being prepared for certain opportunities that may arise along the way. Dr. Nyilenda talked about knowing yourself and knowing what you are really good at. So the whole process of grant application is not haphazard. Like if the call is in 30 days time, some grant calls are like literally short time. Some grant calls you have all the time to prepare for that. So it usually works based in such a way where you have a certain topic or something that you were already thinking about, and then you already did some literature reviews and everything. Maybe you also shared or had a discussion with people on that. And then when you see the funding notification, you just come in and put all the ideas together and put up a very competitive application. So as to how early can you start, I would say you have to be prepared almost all the time. In one or the other. If you define your area of interest, keep working on that area, you're already prepared. Like there are grant calls that have taken within a period of 5 days, and the outcome has been really good. But when do you get to prepare for that? There was one time I was shocked about when there was the outbreak of Mpox, and then EDCTP issued up some funding calls. Within a space of 1 month or 2 months, the grants were awarded. So I was talking to one of my colleagues, Akim, and saying, when did these people get to like this? So in other ways, they had an idea. But when that happened, then they just put it together, assemble the light team, and then get to apply. So perhaps Nathan, Dr. Nyilenda, as well as Martin, can share the experiences as well to Ludo. Nathan, Martin.
Right. So the writing journey, I think it's an interesting journey. There's really a lot that you come about, the challenges that you come about. And if you're going through the writing journey, sorry. So that was a bit, yeah. Okay, so as I was saying, the writing journey is it's a journey that requires you to be intentional, as Adriana is saying. You need to plan your time, because if the call, let's say, to a grant comes out this week, and it's closing in 2 weeks' time, and you plan to write the last 5 days, I don't think that's enough, because you have a lot that you have to do. Particularly, to put it into more perspective, for example, in my case, I knew about this past grant before, a few days before it closed. I was able to pull it off because I had already written a proposal and I had it stashed somewhere. And the only thing that I had to do was refine it, work on the budget, and put my supervisor on board. Now, that was the challenge, because you have to have your supervisor on board for certain grants, and getting him to send in his reference was a challenge. Now imagine if you're late already, you were not able to write your concept in good time. You have to submit. Now you also have to chase and get to your supervisor, your mentor. Now it's not that the supervisors are doing this deliberately. If this person is more experienced, more expertise than you, you can imagine that they're more busier than yourself. And so for you to find them to just sit down, we're going to comment about you and the grant, it's going to take time. So the best thing to do is for you to start early. And so I think that's what I can say. Yeah.
No, thank you, Martin. I think in one way or the other, Ludo, that answers your question. We are really running out of time. But our mail is info@creams.mw.com. You can send more questions if you have that, or inquiries with regard to this grant application. We'll have a more detailed talk with all the members on the 5th of April, where we'll also be unpacking on how you can engage with us in terms of one-to-one talk. But we really appreciate all of you that took time to participate in this webinar, and we hope that you also patronize all our upcoming webinars. We're really happy to see young people like you being passionate about these things, because we are the future of the country, and we need to build this science base in our country. There's a lot of shift in the global politics. So everyone for their own, that's where we are getting to, and the world is going to rely on all of us. And once again, a big shout to our speakers, Nathan, Martin, as well as Tom. We really appreciate your time for helping to develop our younger colleagues or people who are aspiring to be like us. This should just ignite more questions, more interest, and so that you can develop, and maybe from this we can talk about it next year, that 3 or 4 or 5 people ended up winning their grants. Otherwise, this marks the end of our today's webinar. You can pat yourself on the back. You can also tell your colleagues who missed this that they can access it on our website, as well as on our YouTube channel. And if you have questions, you can always send them our way. To all our members, see you on the 5th of April. We'll be sending invitation to you. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.